Hey, everybody, welcome to the Agency Side Podcast. I'm your host, Justin Levinson. Today's guest is Josh Rosenberg, co founder and CEO of Day One Agency. Josh started his career in PR during the dot-com boom, but he was always drawn to one bigger question: where is media going next? That curiosity eventually led him and his partners to launch Day One Agency in 2014 around a simple but powerful idea: the future of social is earned, and the future of earned is social. Since then, Day One Agency has grown into a 185-person agency across New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, and Portland, working with brands like American Express, Nike, Chipotle, and YouTube. In this conversation, Josh talks about building the agency from scratch, staying ahead of culture, launching new capabilities like Day One Studios, and why, even in a world of AI, human creativity, taste, and curiosity still matter the most. Enjoy the episode. Hey, Josh, so great to have you here today.
Hey, good morning. It's great to meet you, Justin. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have this conversation today. We can get right into it. I'm interested in learning your origin story. How did you get into this world?
It's a great question. I started way back when, basically in PR back in the 99 dot-com boom at an agency called Cone, which was based in New York. And I was in the quote unquote interactive office here. Sorry, Cone was based in Boston. I was in the interactive office here in New York. And obviously the dot-com boom kind of busted, but I met actually one of my great mentors there, Rich Goldblatt, who left to go to M Booth to start not to start, but to help lead the consumer business there. And he hired me over. So I spent 12 years at M Booth, where I met my two now business partners, Brad and Rob, and also our fourth business partner, Jamie, who was our chief creative officer here. And that really is how we got started. I'm really in PR and in consumer. And I think, we sort of saw a hole in the marketplace back in 2014. We founded Day One, where the future of social, we believed, was earned, and the future of earned was social. And I think we were being asked so much to like PR an ad campaign. And it's like, you can't really do that. You need to have an idea that people care about, right? That's what's going to get an editor, an influencer, and a consumer to actually engage. So we saw a hole in the market that there really wasn't a PR agency that fully was creative and that had the ability to come up with a creative idea that was through the line. So we started Day One with no clients, no people, and back then no name. And, frankly, have grown the business now into 185 people across 4 cities, and thankfully working with some of the, what we think are the best brands in the world to help them shape, share, and fuel their story across all channels. And I think what excites me the most is sort of where we are today. Because if I look back to 2013, like, maybe you do remember, I was just with a group of USC students last week when I was like 2013. I'm not even going to tell this story, but I'll tell you. But that was like the Oreo dunk in the dark, right? That was the moment that sort of everyone was talking about. And that probably lasted for a week? And everyone was talking about it, maybe 2. A moment like that doesn't exist today for more than a quick moment, right? And if you're not in that community or engaged by that, you might never, even as a consumer, see that. So I think that, really we created Day One, and we've now evolved it to really into a business that can come up with a creative idea that earns a place in culture. And I think now more than ever in this world of AI and, eventually agents talking to agents, like, as humans, we're still going to care, right? And we want to be the agency that really helps brands find that human consumer on the other side with the message that matters and engages them there, no matter the platform.
I love that. Tell me about your personal background. You started out as an account executive. Is that sort of your?
Yeah, I started out on the PR side as an account coordinator and sort of grew through the ranks. Was very much on the, let me think how to put it. So I basically was always thinking about what's next, and I was always fascinated by media and what could be next. So at M Booth, I got the opportunity to start the quote unquote digital practice, which was myself and a few others. I had, quarter of their time back in probably 2008 when blogging became a thing. And, in the 4 years that I had that practice there before we left, really helped to educate the agency and the teams on like what the future could be. We helped launch brands on Twitter. We had at the time, Facebook pages. But that's all to say is that we really understood influencer, and being my background in consumer PR and in consumer media, like we could see where sort of the editors were going and how influencers were taking over. And we sort of took that to day one to really focus on, what is modern storytelling and who are the voices that help to shape the stories, but also shape the culture and the communities where the consumers are. And I think that is what modern creator and influencer marketing has become. But, sort of in my career trajectory, it sort of started with this idea of what is a blogger and what does influence mean way back in 2008.
Love it. So you have a founder that you are, or two others?
There's, yeah, three co-founders
Three
and
co-founders.
there's four partners now.
Cool. How were you feeling when you guys first launched? Was there some nerves there a little bit?
I think definitely nerves. I think at the beginning, we thought that we were going to take time off. Like, I'd worked at M Booth for 12 years. My business partner's there for 11, and our third partner was there for probably 3 or 4. We're like, okay, we're going to take the summer and we'll regroup in September and, figure out what are we going to call ourselves. But we started, once we sort of left, we had a holding page and we just started. Clients were referring their friends. Obviously, we had non-competes, and we're like, you know what? We can't not take these calls. Like, what if nobody remembers who we are in September? So I'm
Yeah.
still waiting for that 3-month time off and vacation, but that really is how we started. And, we've been able to build the business, project over after project. And, one of our philosophies here is that good work begets more good work. And we've really used that philosophy to grow our business. And we've grown a lot of our business really organically. We've had many of the same clients. We've been in business now for 12 years for, 8, 9, 10, 11, you know, of those years.
Amazing. So everything kind of happened pretty organically. You were getting referrals early on, and then the good work just sort of led to more and more work after that.
Yes.
Yeah. Was there an early win that you were really proud of that happened when you guys first launched?
I think YouTube was one of our first clients and it became a founding client. And that was so interesting because obviously it has and is an iconic brand. And I feel like the time we helped them to launch YouTube music services through some digital and social and email marketing. But I think, and we also worked with their creator team, which again, going back to influencer, we just got to learn so much. And all of our other clients wanted to know more about YouTube and this creator world. And we sort of, at the time, like Lily Singh was a huge creator on the platform. And, we sort of had those relationships just based on some of the work we were doing. So we're really fortunate. And even to this day, we really do get to learn from our clients and are able to sort of apply those learnings to other clients across the board. And I think that's one of the things that excites me the most about not only day one, but just agency life in general, that you're exposed to so many different industries and consumer target audiences and media habits that we're able to really sort of take those insights and lift and shift them sometimes to other brands that we're talking to.
Yeah, I love that. A lot of people think working for the brand or studio is sort of the holy grail, but sometimes I find it's pretty interesting to be on the agency side where you get to kind of touch a lot of different things. That can be really exciting for people.
Yeah. I think, it's not just in our name, but really no day is the same because of all the different clients and challenges that they're facing. We're always trying to move with them and sometimes even move ahead of them so we can help bring those learnings back to them.
How many people? So you said there was 100 and maybe I forget how many people are in the agency now,
185.
and you're across a couple locations.
Yeah. So we're New York, which is our headquarters, Los Angeles, where we have Day One Studios, where we do a lot of our content production out of, Portland, Oregon, and Chicago.
Cool. Do you kind of travel between them all?
I do. I'm very fortunate to be able to go to all of our offices. And, it was important to us, even in the pandemic, we never hired remotely because we always thought or hoped, or we didn't know, obviously, but we were betting that, at some moment we would be back in person. If we were to be back in person, we would want to be back in person. And that really is our strong philosophy even today. So all of those cities, we have clients in the backyard of each of those offices. So we're able to be there in person and, really collaborate, which I think in this ever changing world, that in person collaboration is so important because I think it builds trust in a way that just digital communications and Slack definitely do not.
Yeah. What is your like? I mean, your specific role in the company now, what is sort of on your plate?
Yeah, so I'm CEO and I really oversee obviously the agency in next to my business partners and our we have a great executive leadership team. I really focus on innovation, on growth, on products and services and how we stay ahead frankly and help to sort of bring the agency and our clients along. So a lot of that is, we have something called group chat, for example, which is our Gen Z focus group of 75 Gen Zers from across the country that, clients can basically ask a question and overnight we have an answer of, not a representative sample, but a
Yeah.
directional sample of Gen Zers, right? I oversee a lot of the sort of reports and marketing that we do because our thought leadership, frankly, is becomes our marketing and that's how we learn and how our clients learn too. So really helping to stay ahead and sort of see around those corners and especially I'm fortunate in my role to really, be able to sort of connect all the dots across the organization so that we can work even more quickly because we know how fast the media landscape and culture moves.
Yeah. How do you stay ahead of it all? Are you following everything on the socials 24/7? Thanks for tuning in, folks. This episode is brought to you by Coming Up Creative, a relationship first boutique creative recruitment agency. We disrupt the creative ecosystem by running sophisticated, multi channel campaigns with custom video and voice outreach that actually gets responses. We actively market the agencies and brands we represent to help them stand out to today's industry's top talent, all backed by real human connection and AI powered targeting. If you're ready for a modern recruitment approach, visit www.comingupllc.com and get started today.
I would say I used to be 24/7. I feel like I've now learned that a lot happens in 24 hours, but I have a
Yeah.
great team. I'm on social a lot and I feel like I have, great feeds. I follow so many Substackers. I try to be in it. We have a great editorial side business actually that we launched earlier this year called Side Projects. And I feel like I get to learn a lot from them. We also have a podcast. So I get to learn from some of the people who are not only shaping media, but shaping culture and business. And I think, our team is very curious. That's what we look for in employees. And I think that's one of our differentiators. And I think what you need to get ahead, especially in this world of AI. So I'm definitely very connected, but I feel like I also now try to disconnect sometimes from my
Yeah.
phone. Like I'm sort of toying with the ideas like, do I need like a dumb phone for, a few hours on the weekend? I don't know. But,
Yeah.
the constant pings I feel like do become distracting. And, especially as the world is so complicated,
Yeah.
sometimes you need to I find take a step back and try to sort of formulate your thoughts so you can actually think clearly because there's so many things that are coming at you and the scroll is never ending. So I was reading a
Yeah.
story this morning in one of the, I don't know even where, but one of the millions of newsletters or Substacks. And it was like, the news used to have like a finite 30 minutes. And at the end would be
Yeah.
the kicker where there would be like some nice story and you would be like, I am done with the news today. And, there's some great thing going on in my local community where there's you used to call it like puppies or babies, right? Or some ice cream truck. It was a great feel good story. And then you'd be like, you would turn it off. Now there's no end to that. So it's like, how do you also create that end for yourself so that you don't just sort of doom scroll?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it was even that way in television because you'd see an episode of Seinfeld and after 30 minutes, it would be over. Obviously the story continued, but it wasn't like you're watching Last of Us, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Where you're just like, you have to keep going into the next to kind of finish out the storyline. It's bonkers. I mean, I find I have to do the same thing. I also do a podcast because it keeps me fresh on what's going on in the agency world. I talk to leaders like yourself and sort of just like pick brains and kind of stay on top of my game. So that's really cool that you guys are doing that. I've got to check that out.
but yeah, please. Side
Yeah.
projects.
Yeah. What is it again?
Side projects.
Side projects. Are you the host on this
I'm
podcast?
I'm not the host. In fact, I've never been asked on the podcast. So if you guys are listening, I try to I'm not, they have much more interesting people than me on. So not me, but
That's cool. Or do they focus on like influencers or like
no,
who's
it's
sort of like the
actually
main?
just on culture, on media, on marketing, on the media, on the industry in general and culture, frankly. Like
Cool.
2 episodes ago, I think it was all around like sports and what does that mean, especially, in today's day and age. They did a whole episode on nothing, sort of the nothing company and the nothing phone and headphones and everything that they're doing right now. They've had Max Tani on, Mark Stenberg from Adweek. So they've had Emily Sundberg on. So, they really have people that are driving the what's next in sort of media, marketing, and culture. And I find I get to learn a lot from them. And they're also super smart.
That's great. That's really cool. I'm going to check it out. Maybe we can double click on the innovation part because you mentioned you were talking about that a little bit. How does that play out?
I mean, I think in every way and honestly in every day, I think we're always trying to think about what's new and next, not only in AI, but as consumers and as people that are, you know, in this world, like how are we sort of operating within the media world, right? And what are new places and spaces that our clients need to be thinking about? So even like it's crazy to say, but I wouldn't call it innovation, but IRL, right? Like that is not necessarily innovation, but it's really shaping and changing how brands are showing up today for consumers because I'm not the only one that's slightly exhausted. I think we've read all the articles that, Gen Z is starting to be exhausted by the doom scroll and they're trying to find other places to go outside and to be IRL. So in some ways, like experiential and new and interesting ways can be innovation. I
Yeah.
also think back to when we started the agency, like there was no, I don't think we even ever had an idea or a dream that we would have a studio. But I think we learned really quickly as the media landscape continued to evolve and TikTok became a thing. Like we need to figure out how do we get closer to the production and how do we get closer to creating the stories that will fuel our clients' feeds. So we created Day One Studios back in literally right before the pandemic, 2019. And, now we have a full space. We just I think it's like 7 or 10,000 square feet in LA that we just expanded into at the end of last year. And it's where we create not only TikToks, but TV campaigns for our clients.
Love that. How does that experiential play out? Do you guys do some events and is that part of your world as well?
Yeah, we do a lot of events for our clients. I think what we're really good at is thinking about what is the story, right? What's the narrative? How do we engage the audiences that will be there? And then also then how do we get them to share that experience or to talk about it or bring other people of influence who have audiences into those experiences so that it isn't just, there for the 150 people or 300 or 5,000, but how do you sort of make that moment larger than one actual you know,
Yeah.
3 hour event.
Is there, well, I guess I'm interested a little bit in how the AI is playing out. I place like as on the recruiting side of things, and a lot of PR agencies, I get a lot of asks for like AI and innovation people and what those people will do within the ecosystem. Kind of curious how that's working in day one.
Yeah, I think in many different ways. We have 6 pilots and we have 1 product. We have something called Peel, which is our GEO product, which, we're able to not only measure, but also, to a degree predict sort of where and how clients' messaging can show up and what are the sort of outlets or voices that they should be thinking about that might appear higher in sort of the AI search rankings. So that's
Mm,
one way. We have something called Dane here, which is our HR assistant, which basically sort of takes an intranet and our employee handbook, and people can ask it questions about, what is the review cycle? What's PTO? How do I expense this? Or, it sort of takes away some of the friction that might be there. We're using it a lot for creative inspiration. We don't use it really for at all for and creative, but I think for some inspiration, for some briefs, it helps us move faster. So those are some of the ways that we're using it within the agency, but it really is across the board. And I'm always fascinated when I sort of see the team using it in interesting ways. I'm like, oh wow, and that's just what's happening today, right? I can see a future where it becomes even more ingrained into the sort of how we do things, but also at the same time, it is not human, right? So I think we're always trying to think about what is that human layer. And in a world, which I mentioned before, where, if you read everything or see some of the futurists, and I might not totally agree with, but in a world where potentially they're talking about, agents buying things from other agents and, it's so frictionless. It's like, well, I don't know, your shirt looks pretty cool. Like, I
thank
don't
you.
know. Would an agent have bought that for you? Would you have wanted to approve it first? Right? Like it's there there's going to be a human layer that is going to be important to this. And in a world where all we see is, if this world ever were to exist, is, generated or generative content, or that's the bulk of it, I think we as humans, because we still will be human, are going to start to tune it out and to go to other places. So I do see a role for AI, but I also really strongly believe in the role for human creativity, ingenuity, and taste. And that's really how we're trying to think about sort of the opposite side of AI here, and continue to
Yeah,
invest in real people and real creativity, because we believe creativity will help us solve any problem, and including all the ones we don't even know what they are today. Again, going back to TikTok, when we started the business, that was never a thing that we ever thought we'd be doing, right? But now we create TikToks for many clients and, run social for many of them. So I think it's about, how do we stay ahead, and how do we use our human creativity to help us solve whatever that next problem is going to be.
I love that. How does it work with your studio in terms of like who's coming in to like, are they traveling in from places to go to the studio and create these assets? And like, are you, maybe you can just tell me a little bit more about that? I'm interested.
Yeah, so we have in-house photographers and videographers and directors, so they use that as their home base. So we'll shoot, you know, basically, I think we're booked out for the next 3 or 4 weeks with client work in the studio. And then we're also going outside the studio for locations, or sometimes we're shooting offshore, depending on the client and depending on the project. So it really is a mix, but it's really enabled us to get our creatives closer to the work, which I think, in today's world gives us an advantage as it relates to speed. And we're one team. And I think that enables us to sort of go to the client more quickly with ideas, and also be able to execute more quickly, and also iterate more quickly as, the world does change, and maybe what round one looks like is nothing like round two or three. And we're able to do that with more speed and less handoff points, since it's all
Yeah. That's really cool. When you first started this, did you imagine it was going to be like this, having all these different wings and all these people and all these different places?
no. I actually
Yeah.
didn't. I don't know what we sort of thought. We're just like, oh, we think we can do it differently, was really how we started the business. And honestly, like, we've been able to leverage each opportunity as they've come. And then, I think one of the books I read very early on was Greg McEwen's Essentialism. And, one of the things he talks about is like how defined you become by the no's versus the yeses. And I think, yes, we've said yes to a lot of things, but I think we've said a lot more no's. So really proud of sort of the yeses that we've sort of taken a chance on, and our ability to innovate and start these new services that, really are what our clients are asking for. And usually we sort of start small and see, you know, is a client buying it? And if they are, then it's like, how do we sort of invest in that and continue to sell that into other clients, versus the other way around, like creating something and then hoping that the client might want it.
Yeah. You guys are still fairly mid-size, right? I mean, it's not like a huge agency. Do you feel like that's a benefit, compared to all these giant holding companies?
I think I really like our size, and I like that we've been able to grow consistently. And, we necessarily not necessarily have grown the people count, we've grown our business. I think it's because we keep having to move and shift the types of people, but also the types of services that we provide, which I think has been interesting. So we're able to sort of do more slash bigger work with the same amount of people. So I think it's less about the amount of people, more in the how we work. And we're one profit center across the whole agency. So we really do incentivize collaboration, which I think is important. I can't really I've actually never worked at a large agency. I've only worked at, I guess, M Booth was smaller than Day One is now. When I left, they're bigger than us currently. But that's sort of my biggest reference point, frankly, before Day
Yeah.
One. So I like this size. I feel like we have a really tight team that we're able to get work done quickly and creatively. So I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily compare it to another sized agency.
What are the roles that are like the most challenging to fill these days? Like what kind of positions are tricky?
I think mostly the senior roles, I think, are the most challenging roles to fill, because we are so integrated and we expect a lot, because our clients expect a lot from all of our senior positions. The world is changing so quickly. So what you were great at 3 years ago and built your career on, it it that's like yesterday, right? So it's like, how do you sort of take that and learn the next thing? Because everything that I was good at, that we all were probably good at 3 years ago, like is not as relevant today because the world is so different and the way we communicate is differently and our feeds are different and, TV is different and how we are as consumers is just different. So I think we're always looking for people that can adapt and that can sort of take, especially senior people that can take what they've learned throughout their career and figure out how do you adapt that to the future. And I think sometimes that becomes challenging for, especially even in the interview process, right? For people that may have been great or are great at one thing now and they're still great at it, but it's like that thing in 18 months is no longer the thing that clients want or consumers want. So how do you sort
Yeah.
of take that and do the next thing? I think that's sort of where we find a challenge.
We got to keep evolving, Josh, or otherwise we get left behind.
I know.
Yeah.
Change is the only constant.
Man, I know. I think about when I got involved in the recruiting business, how different it was years ago. I mean, people were like, uh, people were cold calling using Rolodexes. I mean, I was into it a little bit after that, but it was still like people were organizing data in like Google Drives. You know what I mean? Now there's these just like elaborate ATS and different reach out tools and multi-channel campaigns and all, and it's so data driven. You can really see who's opening up when and call them as soon as they've opened up an email, and just there's so many different things and data scraping and all these things that are available that just were never there early on. So I'm always trying to stay as relevant I can, at least in this niche.
Do you find it's gotten faster or
Oh my God,
with
it's
all the automation, does it become is it more challenging or
yeah. I mean, I think like like in this business, you really have to have which is connected to yours. Obviously, it's very it's you have to have social proof. So like those multi-channel campaigns and video and all that stuff only I feel like only you only have trust if you have something like a podcast, or if you have something like you're giving value and agency insights or things that you're learning, or they have to see a real person behind it, I think that copywriting is becoming really important because we're all used to seeing those dashes and the AI sort of an email starting with hi instead of hey, or like, all these things that will like mess up with opening rates, you know what I mean? And you have to really like be yeah, thoughtful and personal, and not just like an AI personal compliment that like instantly can give, but like I need to look at what Josh is doing and speak to like something that is relevant.
I think that point, that's literally like what we have to do every day too. Like that is the connection that you're trying to make with somebody you don't know or with an editor,
Yeah.
an influencer, or ultimately the consumer. It's like, how do you connect to them? And yes, the AI of it is all great, but to your point, you need that human piece because that's what's going to get them on the other side to be like, Justin knows me, right? Like, oh,
Yeah.
Justin wants to know me or Justin's putting in the effort. So yeah, I love
Yeah.
the analogy.
Yeah. I feel like you have to like, you want to like know the person you're buying from in some way, and like still like them or trust them, or there has to be something real in there, you know what I mean? And I think that, yeah, I think it's interesting the way, people are sending like, AI generated videos through in hiring now. You know what I mean? Like they're where you can say, you can literally say the same video, but change the company's name out of the person's voice. When it comes in to being like, hey, I noticed Day One Agency was looking for blah, blah, blah. It can say whatever company's name that, and also using like Clay outreach tools, you can know everybody that's hiring an executive, account executive or director or whatever. And so you can just pump out these massive personalized videos. But, I'm just not so into that. It just feels weird to me. I'd rather do it the old school way. But yeah, back to you. I'm interested to know like if you have any insights on where, I mean, you don't have to tell us, but where you feel, if you see any, if you know where things are going a little bit in your agency, if you or within just a PR integrated world, where are you seeing any trends or things that we can look out for in the near to near future?
It's a great question. I mean, I think offline is obviously definitely a trend. I feel like people want to go offline and sort of are exhausted, frankly. I
Yeah.
wish I knew the future. I don't. So If you have any tips, I'd like to know them. What else do I mean? I think again, like I feel like in we're really big and continue to invest in creativity because I think no matter what the future holds, like this idea of creative problem solving is going to be really important. So we're going to continue to invest there because we think that is the future. And we're obviously also investing in AI and the tools and more pilots of how we can best leverage the technology to either make us faster, sometimes smarter, and, maybe even help enhance our creativity in places.
Is there ways with AI or ways to track like like client success in like a campaign or knowing how do you guys feel, what to you is success and is that trackable?
I think many times it is. I mean, a lot of times success is sales. And I think in many cases we can tie back to sales. Like I think Chipotle is a good example. We worked with them for 9 years. We just did one of their actually would help one of our campaigns helped to cause and their largest sales day ever, which was March 3rd. I think it was March 13th of this year, which was our tattoo buy one, get one promotion. But that has a direct hit back to sales. And a lot of what we do and have done for Chipotle over the years is really think about how do we leverage digital and social to get consumers and fans either ordering online or into the restaurant to order. So that's one example. So it's not necessarily an AI example, but it came from real human insight. And, our team has been in the comment section and really understands the Chipotle consumer for the last 9 years as that consumer has evolved, changed, grown, and as new consumers have come in and, really sort of saw that insight and the conversation around tatted like a Chipotle bag and figured out a way to sort of incite and excite our community to buy one, get one and cause the biggest sales day in Chipotle history. So that's one example we're super proud of.
That's awesome. Big Chipotle fan over here. I love my Chipotle. That is that's it's a cool client to be working with.
Me too. They're a big fan of their new cilantro lime sauce. I don't know if you've tried that yet. Very
I
good.
have not. I will try that. Sounds good. I usually go there every weekend with my daughter after I take her to a piano lesson. We go there. So
Nice.
yeah. I guess lastly, like outside of the agency world, what do you like to do for fun and hobbies?
Great question. I love travel. So I feel like I get a lot of inspiration just getting offline, especially in foreign countries where I feel like I don't know the language because I think it's harder to be distracted by a conversation when you don't understand it. So I think it feels like ambient noise. So I think that would be like one immediate thing that I love to do. But, I think definitely very curious. So I like hanging out in the city, friends, family.
Cool. And where do you live in New York or are you in LA?
I live in New York. Yeah.
In New York. Awesome. Cool. Cool. Any favorite music or authors or books or anything that you like?
I'll go with book. I mean, I love a good spy novel. I
Mm,
feel like because again, it's like outside of my purview of life, and I feel like so I love that. I like the Gabriel Alone series. Obviously, I love Robert Ludlum, and I've read like so many of his books. So from a nonfiction perspective, I love like spy CIA type stuff.
cool. Awesome, Josh. Well, thanks for being on today and offering some value to the community and telling us all about Day One Agency. It's been a really real pleasure to talk to you today.
Yes, great to meet you, and thanks for having me on, Justin.
Awesome, Josh. Have a good rest of your day. Appreciate it.
Of course, you too.
All right, man. Bye.